Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. Today we have Karla McLaren and we're going to be talking about one of her two books, actually both books. We're going to start off talking about her first book, which is The Art of Empathy. Do you have the book? Yay! So welcome, Karla.
Thank you.
I love it. Yes, beautiful. So we're going to talk first about empathy, and then later in part two, we're going to be talking about your second book. Ta-da! The language of emotions, what your feelings are trying to tell you. Ooh, and it has an award. What's that award?
The Independent Publishers Award. I got the gold, baby.
Nice. Sweet. Woohoo! All right, so in the second part, we're going to be talking about the language of emotions, and both are in preparation for your upcoming Seattle visit when you're coming on April 24th, talking about your book, The Art of Empathy, and on April 25th and 6th, where you're going to be talking about the emotion theater, which looks like great fun. And tell us your website. I went on your website, and you have all these fabulous videos for free that you talk about emotion theater. Tell us your website URL.
It's karlamclaren.com. So it's KarlaMclaren.com.
Okay, .com. And mine is firedupwithcj.com. And I'm on Facebook and YouTube and also on iHeart. So welcome. Now, what I want to do is start off with the basics because I want to know what is empathy. And you know what? I actually saw many, many different definitions on the internet. So I wanted to hear as an empath, you are self-proclaimed empath. How would you describe what empathy is?
Well, that's a good question because like you, I did find a million different competing definitions of empathy. And there were also a lot of them. I'm looking through the book right now. That's why I'm looking down. There were also a lot of them that actually fought with the others.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I got really frustrated as I was researching the book because I thought, I can't even... What? You know, and then I woke up one morning and I thought, you know what? Nobody's picking up my book to hear what researchers are fighting about. They're picking it up to hear what an actual hyper-empath.
Yes.
So then I knew how to write the book. I was like, okay, all y'all can fight over there. This book is about what's happening.
Yeah. For an actual empath.
Yeah. Here's how it looks.
Okay.
So it's empathy is a social and emotional skill that helps us feel and understand the emotions, circumstances, intentions, thoughts, and needs of others such that we can offer sensitive, perceptive, and appropriate communication and support. Mm-hmm. So basically, empathy is the basis of all communication and relationships. It's everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the big fight, well, there's a bunch of fights, but the big fight in research now is to take empathy away from action. So what they're looking for is empathy is just me feeling the emotions or needs or intentions of others. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of researchers, and I'm on their team. I vote for them.
Yes.
Who are saying, no, you can't just separate it out. Because if a person's feeling something, that's fine, but they could get overwhelmed. What do they do next? So if I'm feeling something from you and then I'm just sitting there like a lump, is that empathy? I don't think so. So it's what I do next with and for
It's an action, like you were saying.
It tells you if I'm being empathically engaged with you.
Right. Because the key aspect is how you communicate and work with others. So if you're just feeling overwhelmed or whatever, that may be actually one aspect of feeling, which I think you have to have in order to be empathetic, but it's what you do.
Yeah.
With that. Yeah. Okay, so what are the other, so I assume the other group it's all about what you do. So there's one that it's all about what you feel, and the other group that says all you want is all you want.
Well, they're saying, the other group is saying, no, you have to have the action. You have to know that the person, you have to know that they are responding appropriately to what they're feeling. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of problems. I ended up splitting empathy into 6 aspects because there are a lot of areas where we would say, oh, that person's not empathic. And I always look at that person and say, where is his or her empathy? Mm-hmm. If it's not with people, who cares? What if it's with horses? What if it's with art? What if it's with languages? We all have a place where our empathy goes. And depending on, how your neurology works, humans could be a mess, and I would support you in not empathizing with them because they're a mess, or something, or in your early life, emotions in your family were too painful, so you just turned away from humans.
Right. Right.
So when people say that person's not empathic, they're talking specifically about humans. And I have to say, I haven't met a person who's not empathic yet.
Okay, that was kind of interesting. You say that in a lot of the things that you write, that you've never met someone that's not empathic, yet there's things that I didn't even know existed, like EDD, which is empathic disorder or something or other, and then there's autism, and then there's narcissist, and these are all kind of outliers, I think. Do you think of, is EDD a real thing? Because there's kind of like, it is a real thing. Like there's a whole article trying to defend that. It is a real thing. And then there was, really, I swear it. And then there's autism, which is like, well, autistic people can learn these things, even though they may not be natural at first. And then there's narcissists, which it seemed to be, forget it. That's not going to work. So I don't even know. So when you say everyone can be an empath, what do you mean? And how would you talk about the outliers or the ones that people say, no, they're not as empathetic?
Yeah. One of the things I say is that it's not empathic to exile people from empathy.
What? It's not empathic to exile people.
So yeah. And one of the reasons I split empathy into 6 distinct pieces,
yes,
is to welcome the exiles.
Okay.
Especially autistic people.
Okay.
Who, what I found in my work with autistic people back in 2006, and I went in knowing, because I'd read all the books, I knew what I was going to see. These are unempathic people. They're little professors. They don't read social cues, and so as a hyper empath, I was very concerned about, would I drive them nuts? Right. Would my presence in their lives be a miserable thing for them? So I went in very, very carefully and very grounded, and I just watched them. And within just a week or so, I went, oh, these are hyper empaths. These are hyper empaths.
Yeah, and that's what I've read. They pick up everything, right?
And so everything's coming in so powerfully that they just simply can't manage all of it. And so you and I have had times when everything's just too much, and someone comes to us with a need, and we're like, not right now.
Right.
Because we know that experience of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, can't deal with it right now. I'm overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, whereas drops to 0.
Yeah, where an autistic person may not. They hit that.
An autistic person, because they're hypersensitive and hyperempathic in many cases, that's what's going on all the time.
Right. They hit that threshold immediately upon seeing you.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of the training it's very sad, but a lot of the training that autistic people deal with is people think they're not empathic, so they come at them harder.
Oh.
There's training where they're coming into the face of the person and turning the face like this and forcing them to make eye contact.
Aww. Yeah.
And I'm like, stop! And narcissists, or people with an empathy disorder. Generally, we look back to childhood and see what was it that occurred that interfered with their natural development of empathy toward people.
Yeah.
But if you see a narcissist or a person with a personality, I call them personality conditions and not personality disorders, because there's a reason people have that condition.
Right.
It's generally a response to something.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism, right?
They're coping or it's an aspect of neurology.
Yeah.
So we look at people who are called disordered or unempathic or narcissistic or borderline.
Wait, and you're actually putting all of them in the same category? Borderline?
No, I'm just saying that these are the people who are exiled from empathy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I find is their empathy is just not directed toward humans, and that's not a big deal. Because humans are a big handful.
Right.
When I was growing up as a hyperempathic person, I would watch what people did and then what they said it was. I would watch the emotions they were clearly feeling and then what they said they were feeling. And I would be like, I thought that humans were a different species from me because I didn't understand what they were talking about at all.
Because there's
And
such a disconnect between what you could feel that they were feeling and then what they were doing.
what they knew, what they knew about their own feelings.
Oh, interesting. Their own self-awareness about their
Yeah, they had
feelings.
no idea what they were doing, and they spent most of their time lying about their emotions. And
Yes.
so I, as a little girl, went and hung out with animals. So they
Mm.
never lie.
Mm-hmm.
They just never lie. Well, okay, if you ask the dog, who got into this garbage can? The
Yeah.
dog will lie a little bit. He'll be like, could have been anybody. But generally animals don't lie.
Yeah.
So I would go and be with animals so that I could be with people who were emotionally congruent.
Mm.
I found humans to be emotionally so discongruent, uncongruent, that I got overwhelmed immediately and needed to shut off.
Oh, interesting. So a narcissist is someone, as I read, I don't know anything, but what I did read on the internet, which is maybe nothing, but what I did read was that narcissists, they didn't have their needs met when they're a child, so they can't necessarily rely on other people to meet their needs. So they have kind of an obsessive sense of wanting to meet those needs through other humans. So I guess they're self-focused because they can't rely on, back to what you're saying, they can't rely on other humans. So
Yeah.
is it the only human that they can rely on as themselves? Is that,
Yeah.
I don't know enough about
Yeah.
narcissism or
Yeah, so looking at
borderline.
it as, you're broken and you're pathological, I was like, no, the soul does things for very intelligent reasons.
Yeah,
And so looking at people through the pathology paradigm, I haven't found it to be helpful because, okay, here's your name and now you're broken.
right.
What I'm finding through the research is that people can change their emotional style and their empathic abilities at any age.
Hmm.
So even if you had a really difficult early life, as I did,
Mm-hmm.
you can bring yourself to a place of more comfort.
Hmm.
Um,
So that someone who has EDD or borderline or narcissism, they can, or autism. I mean, they can. Well, autism is not. In some ways, it's different
yeah,
based on what you're
it's
saying. But in those cases where it's hard to empathize with another human, you can actually get to a point where you're good enough. Or what's a
yeah,
realistic goal in from like not feeling anything to what's
yeah.
the potentiality of what you've seen people do.
Yeah, I think it depends totally on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do with people is find out where their empathy is.
Mm-hmm.
And they've usually turned it toward, it could be cars, it could be books, it could be animals, it could be mathematics, it could be physics, it could be anything. It's where is their interaction? Where is their soulfulness? Where is their duende? Where's their love? Everyone has some. And then to say, okay, you've got empathy totally awesome here. You've got empathy 100.
Right.
So let's see what would need to happen to turn it toward people, if that's even important to you.
I don't understand. What does it mean to have empathy for a sport? Or let's say I'm a lawyer and I have empathy for the law.
Yeah.
What because I think of it in a human context. What does that
Yes.
mean then to have empathy for various contexts?
I don't know. Do you have friends who are just musical
Yeah.
and you don't know what they're hearing? Or friends who are just artistic.
Mm-hmm.
And like my brother is thoroughly mathematical.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, the numbers have meaning, they have purpose, they talk to him, not like ja, 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 but
Right.
when he's doing his math, he's having this beautiful empathic relationship with numbers and with the concepts of math.
Oh, I see. Got it. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know, but when
I've
I
seen
studied
that.
where the word empathy came from, I was very surprised that it only was adopted into the English language in 1909.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Late.
Yeah.
And it didn't come with apathy and antipathy and the other pathy words, or sympathy even.
Yeah.
It came from a German word called Einfühlung. And so empathy came from the German, and this was a word created by the German impressionistic artists of the late 1890s. And I think Gustav Klimt was one of the main ones.
Yeah.
Einfühlung was their way to ask and discover, when I am a painter and I put bits of color on canvas, how is my emotion going into the canvas? When I'm dead and that canvas is in a museum 100 years from now, and people are pulling the emotion off of the picture, what is happening? How does that even?
Right.
It's like Germans ask, how does that even?
Right.
So Einfühlung, which means feeling into or
Einfühlung. Okay, yeah. Interesting.
Einfühlung. So Ein is in and Füllung is feeling.
Yeah, interesting.
So that was like, oh my word. That also helped me write the book, because I looked at the way that I, as a hyper empath, for instance, plumbing. When I do plumbing, I get into the plumbing and figure out how it wants to be. Right? It's like, well, how do you want to be?
Yeah.
What about there? You know, so for me, it's like I'm having an engagement.
Right. Yeah. No, that was just a huge aha for me, because, you know, one of the things that in shamanism, which is I've studied, is that there is this belief that all living things have an energy and an aspect to it. So I could go into a tree and understand the perspective of the tree. I could go into this water cup, which isn't necessarily a living thing. It has water in it, but it's not necessarily a living thing. But I could go in and understand, you know, the structure and the coherence and the beauty that this cup has, you know, as a vessel. So I didn't think of it that way, but that is a form of empathy. I get it now.
Yes, like I'm
Bing! Light bulbs!
I have empathy light bulbs.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking when you were talking about my mom would go into a room. She's an artist. And she would move the furniture around in her mind. You know, she'd be like, zip, zip. I could see her doing it. Zip, 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 zip. And then she'd be moving the pillows in her mind.
Yeah.
And if she had gotten to actually do it, it would have been a much better room.
Yeah.
That was one of her art forms.
Yeah, my architect says, the desk kind of wants to be here. I'm like, do you mean like you want us to put the desk there, or the desk is talking to you and wants to be there? But I actually think for an empath, they do sense like the desk does want to be there.
Yeah. The desk is unhappy.
The desk is unhappy there. Okay, so one of the things you talked about, all the different, you know, sympathy, there's empathy, there's compassion, there's love. There's all these different flavors of what we're talking about. How are they different? And, you know, there's, again, thousands of videos out there. I saw a plethora of them and felt probably more confused than I felt clarified. So what is the difference between sympathy, empathy, compassion, and love?
That's another reason why I put empathy into the 6 separate pieces, so we could see, okay, here's where sympathy is, here's where compassion is, here's where this. So I would see empathy, and I would sort of agree with those researchers who are saying it's the capacity to feel emotion. Sympathy is, there's an aspect of empathy called perspective taking. I would put sympathy there, because sympathy, in some definitions, right, but sympathy is the ability to understand the feeling of another, but not share it right now.
Okay.
I can understand that you're having that feeling. Empathy is like we're sharing the feeling, or the thought, or the intention.
Okay.
And then compassion for me is that final act of empathy where you figured everything out, you figured what the other person wants, and now this is what they would like. So compassion is more. Now, some people would fight with me on that, but of course, we're fighting about empathy. So
the irony.
What that means. What does that even mean? But some people want compassion to be this entirely separate thing, like it's a spiritual something or other.
Right.
And I just don't know if that's true. I think it's an aspect of empathy. Yeah. But it's sort of like the culminating aspect when I'm making when I'm making the action that meets your needs.
Okay, and what's love? How do you figure that love fits into all of this?
In the language of emotions, I separate love out from emotion. because
Interesting.
actually looking at love, I was able to say, okay, now I know why you're not an emotion, because emotions move and change. That's a normal part. When an emotion is done addressing an issue, it fades away. It doesn't leave, but it fades away. And love should not fade away.
No, but it does. No offense. I mean,
Yeah, no offense. I used to love that.
don't love it anymore.
Yeah.
I think actually love does have that ebb and flow, just like emotions have this kind of storm roller coaster feeling that they come and then they go.
I think that would be more like romantic love.
Yeah, that is actually what it is.
And
it's
that is
romantic
very
love.
Emotional and very unstable.
But I guess
I would say like the long-term love, like the love of an older married couple, the love of a dog for his master.
Yeah.
The love of parents for their children, one hopes.
Yeah.
You know, like the long range. The one you want to get into while you're doing this with your romantic love.
Yes.
The one you want to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I want to role model a little bit. So let's say I kind of want to role model because I saw lots of like, this is what it sounds like when it's sympathy and empathy and blah, blah, blah. So let's say that you saw me and I said, yeah, and you just found out, I just had a divorce and then I found out that my dad died. So I'm like, hey, how, and we're having coffee and you're like, yeah, it's been really hard for me because my dad just died recently. It really took me by surprise. So what would the sympathy response be?
Sympathy can get into some problems here because people can start going on their own story.
Yeah.
They can be like, oh yeah, I remember when my dad died.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of not empathic. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because now you're taking the floor.
Yeah. It was so awful, and I remember blah blah blah.
It was so hard. Oh my gosh. So for me, sympathy would be you're kind of separate from it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for some people, that is a safety valve because they can't afford to get into your emotion. They don't know how to get out.
Right.
So they've got to go to sympathy and make it about themselves.
Right.
Right. So it would be what we call bad acting. A bad actor. A bad actor will be, I'm a tree.
Right.
A lot of stuff. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
But good acting is being in the moment.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So then how would if you were empathetic and I'm like, yeah, my dad just died. It's awful.
Yeah. So I would get into the emotion with you. Because I know how to get out. Right? So if you feel like crying, we meet our eyes, I might begin to cry. Like I have time for you, especially with grief. I have time for you. And I'll be like, whoa. It's not about, with sympathy, it's about how brilliant my speaking is.
Yeah. You'll get over it. It's fine. It's
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
My dad. But with empathy, I'm just sitting with you. Do you know?
You're sitting with the emotion and just letting it be and experiencing that with me versus trying to insert whatever I may be feeling. Like, aren't you feeling sad? Or, do you feel sad? It's more like, well, how are you feeling? Or, I can only imagine what it would feel like. Or what would you say?
Well, when you say my dad, the way that you said it, if I can remember, is like, my dad died. And then your voice went down and your body went down.
Yeah, so I was like, my dad died.
So that doesn't feel like you need me to talk to you.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? You're not leaning forward. You're not making eye contact. You're just down. So I might just make a whoa. And then just let the silence speak.
Oh, God. It's so hard to do that, isn't it?
I know, because people get scared about the emotions of others. This is one of the reasons I didn't understand what are humans even doing?
Right.
Like the person is wanting to cry. Why did you just stop them?
Right. Well, because we don't want to see them cry in the coffee shop. God forbid.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone's looking at us now.
It's a scandal. People have emotions.
Yeah.
You've got to get on that. And I think, you think of the first thing that people do when they cry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I'm crying. God, I feel so, I'm so embarrassed.
Emotions. Yeah. Embarrassed. I should hold everything together when my dad dies.
Right.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. No, but that is anytime someone cries, I feel, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. It's like just a cleansing because it's just like that was the best thing ever that I could have done for you because I'm so glad. Like, as a coach, I'm just so happy when someone cries because it's just a gigantic cleanse. So I'm like, yes, yes, they cried. Yes.
I'll make you cry harder.
Yeah. No, not in a mean way. Not in a mean way, but it's like, it's cleansing because that emotion was right there on the surface and you provided the safety for them to, release it. All right. So what would compassion be? So if I said, oh yeah, my dad just died.
I think compassion would look like empathy in that
Yeah.
situation, right?
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah. I think actually it would probably be a combination of, wow. And then kind of saying like everyone dies, it's a loss. It's like you kind of go into the meta position where you look and say
Yeah.
everyone dies. It's a really awful transition to go through when you have to let go of someone that, you were talking about grief in one of your videos. It's when you have to let go and there's nothing left. And I can feel that feeling of the last time I had to let go of someone and I can be like, yeah, honey, I know. It's like I really have compassion for you. It's like you feel like you could even say, I really have compassion. It's one of the hardest things in life to deal with. Yeah. What can I do? Or I've been there too, or there's something slightly different, I think. You go into some meta position where you can evaluate that emotion from a kind of a higher perspective. Everyone dies, But it's not in the sympathy like he led a good life and he lived till he was 100. So, good for that was good, where you're like, you just negated.
Awesome.
Yeah, but at least he lived till he's 100, that's awesome. So I think it's different. All right. So what are the benefits of empathy? You were telling me when you're younger it's harder, but now that you've now that you've kind of mastered this has kind of been your like PhD in life. What have you found as the benefits of having this gift that you have?
I think it's just that you can engage more fully with the world. Mm-hmm. And that's bad when you're young and you can't control it. Mm-hmm. But as I learned to manage it and created the skills to do so, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. And it's fun to have empathic friends too.
Yeah.
Especially when we're in a group where people are just doing their nonsense and my empathic friends and I can just look at each other like this,
Yeah.
And that's it. And we're just laughing and having a great time and there's no words at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, check that out. So you can have fun everywhere as an empath.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's interesting. So I actually had those empathic abilities when I was younger. And for me, I turned them all off because it was just like, I don't, like yourself where you're like, I don't get whatever is going on. So I'll just turn on the whatever switch everyone else is on because I just don't know what to do. And then as I did a lot of spiritual work, I was turning it back on to the point that I'm like, whoa, like I would go into an elevator and I could see misery, unhappiness. I could hear dialogue and I was like, was too open. So how does one kind of moderate? Because it sounds like you unlike me were like instant impact, full of misery. How did you modulate so that it wasn't kind of a jarring, unhappy experience? Or is there a way to do that?
Yeah, in both books, I share the same skills, which are the 5 main empathic mindfulness skills. Mm-hmm. So grounding, mm-hmm. focusing, setting boundaries, creating mm-hmm. a sense of your peripersonal space around you, which I used to understand as the aura, but is actually also a neurologically mapped space that is just wonderful. So becoming aware of your personal space can make you a lot more graceful and less likely to walk into walls. Awesome.
Wait, what is I don't understand what that means. What's a neurological space?
Well, I always knew that the size of the aura was the exact same size as the personal space that psychologists talk about. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's interesting. Maybe psychologists understand the aura. But mm-hmm. it is also the exact same space as something called the peripersonal space, which your brain and your body map constantly mm-hmm. so that you don't like go like this, and then knock all the dishes off the
Ah,
shelf.
okay, got it.
So your body knows everything around you, even behind you,
Yeah, it's kind of like
to the
proprioceptic kind of
yeah,
sense.
to
Yeah,
that
okay.
level of your fingers. So it's the
Right.
exact size of a healthy aura, right?
Ah,
So I understand it now in terms of its neurological function, which means it can change.
hmm.
Your proprioceptive space can change as you become more aware of it. You can, for instance, if you're using a tool like a paintbrush,
Right.
you use it enough, your brain will map to it so
Hmm.
that you can actually feel the end of the paintbrush
Ah, okay,
naturally,
yes.
right?
Yes.
If you're in a rental car, you know how you're kind of like, what am
What the
I?
heck?
What's this?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then your brain will map to it.
Yes.
So you can change. So if people don't have any sense of personal space at all and they're just torn open, you can actually rebuild that and your brain will go, oh, okay, cool. I got some space
Ah,
here.
so it's almost like literally in your mind imagining this kind of physical.
Yeah.
People talk about bubbles. Is that the same
Yeah.
thing or
Yeah. So it's
different?
the same thing as, so for hyperempathic people, it's important to have that sense that I have some private space.
Yeah.
But also for people who are less empathic, for them to start to get a sense of themselves. Because
Mm-hmm.
people who are less empathic with other people, generally there was some trouble early on that made them go, you know what, people suck.
Right.
So getting them a sense of safety and privacy will
Mm-hmm.
give them like, I can live in this world of humans.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can find someone who's safe and start there.
Ah, yeah. So going back to the autistic people who are super sensitive,
Yeah.
it's like allowing them to create this boundary and bubble around them, even though it's an invisible boundary, to feel
Yeah.
kind of a safe container that's just them. Even
Yeah.
if someone is standing next to you, they're
Yeah.
outside of the container.
Yeah, and then grounding. So then the other skills are conscious complaining, which
Mm-hmm.
helps people with their emotions, yay,
Mm-hmm.
and a rejuvenation practice. So for filling yourself with exactly what you want.
Right.
And so it's like a constantly soothing, boundary setting, grounding, and moving through the world in a way that it's not, you're not going to get, knocked over by every
Right.
emotion that happens.
I missed the second one, so I heard the rejuvenating, kind of filling yourself with white light or energy, so you're, and then your bubble is filled. What was the second thing that you said?
Grounding, defining your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
rejuvenating, conscious complaining.
Oh, conscious complaining. What is that?
That is awesome. Basically, it's you go and you create a practice for your crankiness. And it's a spiritual cranky practice.
Yes, okay.
And, so you just, one of the things that's problematic in human culture is that people aren't allowed to express their emotions or even feel them. As you know, when we cry, oh, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm having a human emotion.
right.
So conscious complaining is a way to work those emotions out and become more emotionally aware.
Okay.
At the same time as you downregulate from whatever your riled up cranky state is.
Okay.
It's very fun. It's very simple.
What would it look like? Like, I'm really cranky because I've just been sitting in traffic. What would it look like if I was having my cranky?
So I might say, because it has to have a beginning, a good ritual has a beginning, middle, and end.
Okay.
Right? So I say, I'm complaining now.
Right.
I cannot believe this traffic, blah, blah, blah. Why are they working on the road at 2 in the afternoon?
Right.
Could they not do this at night? Right? Okay, I'm done.
Okay, got it.
It can be that quick.
Right.
When you know it's a practice.
Right.
Because
So
most
it's
people
about
do unconscious complaining.
So it's a way of kind of bringing to surface the toxic emotions that are probably rattling around there anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so last question about emotional intelligence or empathy rather, or emotions generally. It sounds like you've been teaching emotion theater, which we're going to get to next, for a while, and you've been teaching people who are younger, older, millennials, older people, and I was wondering because as technology has gotten more and more into our lives, you find people breaking up with people on Facebook or in a very public place or in a text. I'm no longer gonna, I don't want to date you anymore. Send. So a lot of the body language and the IQs and all those things are taken away, and so we don't have kind of a full picture of that. Those are things that generally allow us to empathize.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, over the course of people that you have taught, have you noticed this electronic phenomena? And if so, how do you see that interacting with the younger people versus older people?
I don't see that anybody is good interacting online.
Okay.
I don't see that. I mean, people get into full on. I had this hilarious thing that I posted on my Facebook page. It's called the Rainbow Cake Apocalypse. Someone did a post about rainbow cake, and then you could freeze a number, however old the child was, you could freeze the number, and then you put the number inside, so each slice has the child's rainbow swirl and the child's age.
Right.
So each slice has a 5 in it. I mean, like, awesome cake, right? So they talk about how to make this cake.
Right.
And then in the comments, someone says, how long do you freeze the number?
Right.
And then someone snarks at them until it's frozen. And then
oh, brother,
the entire thread takes over, and then people are talking about liberals, and then people are like, well, like, you're just an idiot, and then you're this, and then people are like, and then other people are saying, this is a lovely cake recipe. So if you can find the rainbow cake comment apocalypse, you will die. Then you will reincarnate. You will come back into your body and die again from the laughter. And someone's like, this is a post about cake.
Right.
You criminals, right?
Yeah, seriously, people?
But people don't know how to work with sarcasm online.
Yeah.
They don't know how to work with difficult emotion online. And in the research that I've been looking at, because the way people are online fascinates the heck out of me.
Yes, me too.
It's eye contact. It is specifically eye contact. I mean, some people are saying it's anonymity. No, that's not it. That it's not being close to people, and that's part of it. But it is not having eye contact, not having this knowledge that someone is watching you, and your behavior has consequences.
Oh, I see. So you're saying the reason why bad behavior happens on social media is because there's you don't have this thing.
I'm thinking we need eyes on every freaking site.
Yeah, your mother's sitting there like
mm-hmm.
You're gonna send that?
Are you? And it's funny that you would think that, we're all grown up and we all know how to use language and work our computers, and just the absence of eye contact makes us lose all of our social skills.
Yeah.
Basically all of them.
Yes.
And go on flaming comment wars about a cake.
Yeah.
It's like, what is wrong? But there was some research done on using eyes, just human eyes in a room, in front of a coffee, free coffee with an honor bar, where you pay your $1 if you're going to take your coffee, with just a picture of nature that was beautiful. People were stealing that coffee.
Right.
And they put a picture of eyes, and I don't know what the percentage was, but it was significant.
Is it just eyes or face?
Just the eyes.
Fascinating.
Do you know, like, those Buddhist or Hindu eye pictures?
Yeah.
Eye of Horus?
Yeah.
It's like we could do that on all the sites on the internet.
Exactly. Just an eye of Horus. Okay, better not.
It's like the eyes looking at you sideways.
Yeah. Really? This is what you're going to do? Well, the eye of Horus is like, you're going to spread my body parts across all over the country? Really?
I don't think so.
All right, interesting. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much. So you're going to be talking about The Art of Empathy, your book, on April 24th in Seattle in the evening. So go to the East West Bookstore and tell us your website again, Karla McLaren.
KarlaMcLaren.com.
KarlaMcLaren.com. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show, and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.